Greetings, Trinity, and friends of Trinity on this sixth Sunday of Easter, in which the Gospel has Jesus asking a question of someone he encounters at the water's edge. And in that question, as in all the readings today, in more than one story and in more than one way, we are invited to ponder the questions we are asked when we approach the water's edge. What questions? Stay tuned. In the name of the one God who was and is to come, my homily for this sixth Sunday of Easter is called Deep Water. So, in the heart of Central Park is a place called the Bethesda Terrace, an open-air court paved in Roman brick with two grand stairways and an arch entry of ornate tiles. And rising 96 feet in the midst of that terrace is the glorious Bethesda Fountain, with its compelling statue called Angel of the Waters. You've seen it in countless TV shows and on movies. In one hand, she holds a lily, symbolizing purity, and the other is outstretched in a gesture of blessing over the water. It is a fitting gesture, given that the Bethesda Fountain commemorated the opening of the Croton Aqueduct, which brought clean water to the city at a time it was desperately needed for healing the cholera epidemic of the 1830s. That famous terrace and fountain is deeply beloved by natives and visitors alike because, I think, it is so much more than a beautiful object in a lovely setting. It seems to lift our attention into something larger than ourselves. People from every place and walk of life gaze upon the flowing water and they ponder that gesture of blessing. For some, it evokes a sense of the possible, the promise of something true and meaningful, a lasting goodness that we long to experience. Well, such images and promises arise throughout today's readings too, including the Gospel, which takes place by the pool at Bethsaida, or, translated, Bethesda. Yes, the famous fountain in Central Park is named after the healing pool in John's Gospel, where a man afflicted for 38 years is asked a question by Jesus: "Do you wish to be made well?" The man does not answer yes or no, but explains that whenever the opportunity comes, others push past him. Interestingly, Jesus does not admonish the crowds, nor does he particularly commend the man. He simply tells him to pick up his mat and walk. We do not know the man's name or hear him offer any thanks or insight. What we do know is that the Gospel makes it a point of saying that this occurred on the Sabbath, a day when such healings were strictly forbidden by the religious authority. Once again, Jesus honors the spirit of the law, refusing to be limited by the letter of the law. The divine promise, the new way, will not be constrained in its movement or expression, but is open to anyone at any time who wishes to enter that water. But remember, it is not the water that does the healing. The water is not magic. It is the desire for new life, our longing for new possibility that lifts our gaze unto things writ large, beyond ourselves, and into that which we may not have before imagined. Hence the question posed by Jesus to the man by the pool: do you wish to be healed? So we hear of another waterside encounter this morning between Paul and a Gentile woman named Lydia, a seller of fine purple cloth, independent and the head of her own household. She is a spiritual seeker, active in worship and prayer with others, interested in Judaism, but not quite ready to commit. In time, however, she enters another pool, so to speak, known as the Way. Lydia and her household are baptized as she becomes the first known Christian convert on the European continent. Such different stories these are, about two entirely different people, one a nameless, poor, afflicted man, and the other an enterprising woman of means whose name we remember. The man experiences new life spontaneously and unexpectedly, whereas Lydia finds it gradually in her own time and from her own interactions with others. Yet both are seekers in their own way, longing for a new life of health and wholeness, which is to say, salvation. And both were encouraged by a witness who believed in that health and wholeness, who invited them to the water's edge to begin anew, to become reborn into a new way of thinking, perceiving, being, and living. And that is why these stories are Easter stories. And the primal evocative images of water and new life are what make them baptism stories. Well, a look around this old stone church and grounds makes clear that we have no glorious Bethesda fountain in our midst. We do, however, have a simple, beautiful baptismal font. We may not have a splendid bronze statue, an angel holding a symbol of purity, but we do have the pure hope and joy that comes with our trust in the promises of God. We may not see that angel's sculpted hand raised in blessing over the water, but we extend our own human hands in gestures of blessing. But again, it is not the water that does the healing. The water is not magic. Just as Jesus asked a question of the man at the pool, we too are asked questions at the water's edge of the font. And it is by our own desire and free will to live into those questions that will bring healing to our souls and to a world in need. Remember those questions. Will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself? Will you strive for justice and peace among all people? Will you renounce evil and respect the dignity of every human being? Or, as Jesus phrased it in John's Gospel, do you wish to be healed? It is our vow of yes that brings us into the dazzling new life of possibility, that no matter who we are or how our personhood is expressed, no matter our age, circumstances, gifts, or burdens, we have within our spirit a fountain of endless promise, the ever-flowing love of God, a divine aqueduct vast enough to carry living water to the whole of creation, and which will never, ever, ever run dry. Amen.